Hey guys, tonight we begin with a candle. It's small, ivory, flickering. The kind sold at roadside altars or tucked into the corners of old temples. The kind that seems to remember something long after it's gone out. You're not in your own room tonight, not quite. The air feels different, as if the night itself is leaning in to listen. Somewhere nearby, a window's cracked open just enough to let the hush of dusk pass through, carrying with it the scent of rain minus warm clay and distant wood smoke. You probably won't remember this lifetime anyway. Most aren't. Maybe a few dream minus fragments will trail behind you a favorite smell, a path you feel like you've walked before, the face of a stranger who smiles like they know your name. But that's all right. Not every thread needs to stay woven. Some are meant to fall loose. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you do like, leave a comment with your local time and mood tonight. I'd love to know how your spirit is landing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's season tonight's journey together. You are 5 years old, and your mother has just lit a candle during the evening power outage. The room dips into golden shadows, and everyone is gathered close. Your older cousin is telling a story, something about a talking yam that refused to be peeled, and the grown minus-ups are chuckling gently behind their palms. But you're not laughing. You're watching the candle. Its flame trembles toward the wall, sways, leans again. It reminds you of something. Not someone. Something. A hallway. No. Dusty. A red cloth hanging by a window. The smell of roasted plankton. A sound singing, high and winding, like a cellar's coal winding through humid air. You say it's awfully. This was near the Yellow Gate, where the Calabash cellar sits. Your uncle goes quiet. What did you say? He asks, his voice calm, but leaning forward. You blink, a little confused. You thought everyone remembered the Yellow Gate. You thought they all saw it just now, when the flame bent a certain way. It's in the old market, you say, pointing. Left of the woman with the broken anklet. You have to pass the pile of blue cloth. Your mother stares at you like your mouth has opened into a doorway. Then, gently, she asks, who told you that? You frown. No one. I went there before. And then you shrug and return to the candle. The story continues. But the room has changed. That night, long after everyone has gone to bed, your parents speak in hushed voices just beyond the mosquito netting. Words like a gift, child of return, elder must be consulted. You dream of the candle again. But this time it's not a flame. It's a doorway. And on the other side is a long corridor lined with stalls. One sells whispers. One sells names. One sells stories that haven't been written yet. In Yoruba belief, such memories aren't mistakes. They are echoes, fragments of a soul's last journey that haven't quite finished peeling away. Children born with their eyes half open, they say, sometimes carry scents, tastes, even streets with them into the next life. There's a reason some children cry uncontrollably at the sight of certain foods, or refuse to sleep near water, or speak of grandmothers no one remembers. There's a name for it, IKUA, soul that leaves and returns, again and again. But not always in sorrow. Sometimes in search. They say ABIQ children are marked not by their tears, but by their clarity. You're still 5 when the neighborhood diviner is brought to visit. He smells of camphor and cola nut, and when he asks you questions, He doesn't look at your face, he watches your feet, as if waiting for them to twitch in memory. He holds up the small items a dried snail shell into smooth, round stone and asks you to choose. You pick the stone. He nods. She knows, he murmurs. Or a part of her does. She has walked between. You ask what he means. He just smiles. You'll forget again. That's all right. But before you do, listen to the market inside you. It's still open. Later, your mother places a bowl beside your bed filled with water and 3 drops of palm oil. She whispers a prayer quiet, rhythmic, ancient. It isn't for you. Not exactly. It's for the flame. The one that flickers between this world and the last. Years from now, you'll be walking a dusty street in a town you've never visited, and you'll pause. There, beside a yellow gate, a woman's, it's beside stacked calabashes. One of them is cracked, the way you remember. The air smells of roasted plantain. You won't say anything, but your eyes will sting. You'll forget again. But the candle's still burning. The market still waits. And the whisper still loops through the alleyways of your dreams. Mystics still argue whether a soul keeps its entire past like pages in a book, or whether it carries only one scent, one thread, one name into the next life. But perhaps memory doesn't belong to the mind at all. Perhaps it is a kind of gravity. The kind that pulls you to a candle, or a gate, or the sound of someone calling your name before you've even been born. You are 6 years old now, and the market has returned to you in dreams. Not every night. Just often enough to feel like an old friend who visits in gentle weather. The stalls are never in the same order, but you recognize the rhythm of their noise. There's a woman with cory shells woven into her hair who sells baskets of laughter. A tall man with no mouth who offers empty bowls. A boy who trades pebbles for promises. Each time, you walk through calmly, barefoot, as if you belong there. And you do. When you wake, you can't always explain what you saw. But you carry it with you, the sense of bargaining not for fruit or cloth or beads, but for paths. For futures. For the weight of a name. Your grandmother begins paying closer attention. She's the only one who doesn't dismiss your stories with a worried smile or a hand wave. One morning, she places a small red thread around your ankle. So they know where to find you, she says. Who? The ones who loved you before. You want to ask more, but she's already humming one of those low, bone-minus deep tunes she uses when slicing yam or grinding melon seeds. Her back turned, but her ear tuned to you, just in case you start describing the market again. That week, you visit her church. It's small wooden, with sunbird benches and fans that were loud enough to drown out. The pastor speaks of salvation, of rebirth, of the Spirit's journey home. You glance up at the stained glass behind him, an angel, kneeling beside water, and something in your chest whispers, not that kind of river. In Yoruba cosmology, the place before birth, the unlived, is not a blank waiting room, but a garden of souls, a layered place of memory and motion. Some describe it as a vast market. Others as a gathering of ancestors beneath ancestral trees. All agree you choose your path there, or your path chooses you. And sometimes the noise of the world makes you forget. But not always. One afternoon, your cousin brings home a school assignment right about your first memory. He scribbles something about his 4th birthday party. You, meanwhile, pick up your pencil, pause, and then draw the curve of a river bending behind a yellow gate. You shade it with the side of your crayon. You don't know why, but you had footprints along its edge, tiny ones, walking alone. You don't turn it in. You hide the page in your notebook, beneath math problems and doodle flowers. You understand now that not everyone remembers like you do. At night, your dreams shift slightly. You're not just visiting the market. You're reworking their sweeping the paths, carrying clay bowls, stacking cloth. The woman with cowries gives you a nod of recognition. The man with no mouth hands you a mirror. When you glance inside, you see not yourself, but a girl standing just outside your doorway, watching. You wake with the word Ayala on your lips. No one taught it to you, but you whisper it all day. Your mother hears and frowns slightly. Later, your grandmother explains Ayala is the wandering spirit, the child who returns again and again, never quite settled, always skipping between lifetimes like stones on a river. Some say Ayala is a trickster, she says, stirring her tea slowly, always rushing into life, choosing hard paths just to escape boredom. Others say HES a blessing, a soul that wants to help but forgets how. You ask which one you are. She smiles, thin and soft. Too early to say, but you do hum in your sleep, like someone trying to remember a tune they didn't learn this life. The next time you dream, the boy with pebbles offers you one. Just one. A smooth, flat piece of blue minus gray stone, still warm. You take it. When you wake, it's not in your hand, but your palm tingles. At school, you find yourself humming again. A song that wins in circles, never quite resolving. One of your classmates stares at you. You're doing it again, she says. Doing what? That remembering. You don't ask what she means. You already know. Your grandmother begins leaving little bowls of water beside the windows. For the ancestors, she says, so they can sit and listen a while. Sometimes she places a cola nut beside your pillow. Sometimes a whisper behind your ear, come back slowly, little one. You learn that in some Yoruba houses, they cover newborns with white cloth not just for protection, but to keep their souls passed from leaking out too quickly, too soon. Some souls carry sorrow like a lantern. Some carry laughter like a debt. You carry something quieter like the smell of a place before rain. A kind of knowing that doesn't ask questions, just follows. Yuri still 6 when a visitor comes. A woman dressed in indigo and silence. She sits cross-legged on the mat and watches you with eyes that feel like they belong to 100 people. She doesn't ask anything. She just nods. Then she says, you left something behind in the market. Do you want it back? You hesitate. Because part of you does. And part of you isn't sure it's yours anymore. The woman reaches into her woven bag and pulls out a single strand of yellow thread. Tied to a bee. No clasp. No charm. Take this, she says. Tie it to nothing. Let it remember you. You nod. That night, you sleep without dreams. But in the morning, your toes feel worn. And when you open your notebook, the drawing of the market is gone. In its place, a single sentence, written in your own hand. I chose this. No one believes you wrote it. But the red thread still rests around your ankle. And the boy with the pebbles still waits quietly. Sometimes, remembering isn't about seeing the past. Sometimes it's about recognizing the weight of a stone you've never touched in this life and knowing it fits your hand. The market has visited you in weeks now, but the feeling it left behind never quite fades. It lingers in your fingertips when you brush past certain fabrics. In the shadows under almond trees, when the wind skips in a particular rhythm. And in the stillness before someone calls your name, when your breath pauses, just for a second, expecting a different voice than the one that arrives. You carry the memory of the yellow gate like a fold in your soul. Sometimes you don't think about it at all. Other times it tugs gently, like a thread you're not supposed to pull but do anyway. One day, in a dream not about the market, you find yourself kneeling beside a pond filled with mirrors instead of water. The sky is orange above you, as if time is melting. And on each mirror's surface, you see yourself older, younger, laughing, crying, wearing clothes you've never owned and scars you've never earned. Then one of them speaks. Not aloud. Just a ripple of thought. You've been many, then you'll be more. You don't answer, but you feel yourself nod, like someone who's finally been told the thing they already suspected. When you wake, your tongue tastes like smoke and citrus. You check your notebook, but there's no new message. Only the drawing you thought had disappeared. The market, clearer now, more detailed. A basket of feathers in the foreground. A bill hanging from the sky. You are 7. Children your age are forgetting their imaginary friends. You instead are starting to remember ones no one believes existed. Your mother lights a candle one night not for prayer, just for warmth, and you stare at the flame far too long. There's a flicker, a tremble, a moment when the shadow cast by the wick stretches into directions at once. And you think that's what it's like, coming back. You start asking questions your grandmother won't answer directly. What if someone remembers before they're supposed to? She shrugs. Then the ancestors must be left the door ajar. What happens if they try to go back? She pauses. Then they get lost in the middle. Between lives. Between names. You don't ask anymore that day. Later, she places salt beneath your pillow. Just a pinch. To weigh you down, she murmurs. Keep your dreams from flying off without you. There's an old Yoruba practice. She tells you where a newborn's name is whispered into their ear on the 7th night. Not the name given at birth, but the one their soul remembers. The one they carried across the threshold. Not every child reveals it, but some do. Some whisper back. That night, you dream again. Not of the market, but of a path made of folded leaves, each one labeled with a question. Some are familiar. What was your first sorrow? Some are strange. Which river forgave you? Some make you pause. Which mask did you leave behind? You walk slowly, step by step, barefoot, careful. At the end of the path, it's a small table. On it a bowl of stones, a spoon made of bone, and a tiny mirror suspended by a thread of smoke. You reach for the mirror, but your hand passes through. You wake up gasping, not from fear, but from the sense that someone was about to answer a question you forgot to ask. You find yourself humming again. That same circling tune. It has no lyrics, but each note feels like a breath released by someone older than you'll ever be. At school, you begin noticing who listens differently. One girl always turns her head when the wind shifts. A boy stares too long at puddles, like waiting for something to surface. You don't talk about it, but you all seem to know. One day, during a rainy recess, a teacher calls your name. You flinch. Not because you weren't listening, but because it was the name you expected to hear. Later at home, you pull the red thread off your ankle. Just for a moment. Just to see. and your dream that night is sharp. Not frightening. Just vivid in a way that feels too close. You are in the market again. But it is silent. Everyone is still. The stalls are covered with cloth. The river has stopped flowing. A man stands in the center, holding something in his hand. It's your voice. Not metaphorically. Literally. It glows like a lantern, humming softly, and he asks if you do like it back. You don't speak. Instead, you nod. He hands it to you and you place it in your chest, like tucking a candle into your ribs. You wake with your throat sore and your pillow damp. But you don't feel sad. Just real. Like someone who remembered how to wear their name again. Your grandmother finds the thread on the floor. She doesn't scold you. Just ties it back without comment. She makes you a small charm of 7 black seeds and hangs it near your bed. For balance, she says. And to give the dream roads better footing. There's an old belief children who remember the market often become diviners, poets, or midwives. Souls still wet with the scent of the place between. You start speaking less. Not because you're scared, but because you've begun listening in ways no one taught you. One morning, you stand barefoot in the yard before sunrise, palms open, eyes closed. Your mother calls your name from the kitchen. But for a moment, just a moment, you don't respond. Because you are somewhere else. Someone else. Listening. To a bell that only rings when no one watches. To a gate that only opens when the soul is soft enough to pass through without pushing. To a name you've never spoken aloud, but that feels more yours than any you've been given. You open your eyes. The world looks the same. But the light has shifted, slightly, as if the sky itself remembers you. Your 8th birthday arrives quietly. There is cake. There are paper lanterns in the yard and songs that loop to fast on a tinny speaker. Children run barefoot in the warm dusk, sticky minus-fingered and loud. And you laugh with them, but your laughter sits slightly beside you, like a well-worn robe you wear because everyone expects you to. It's not sadness. Just distance. Like looking at your reflection on the surface of a bowl and knowing the water below it remembers more than you do. That night, long after the last guest has gone and the candles have become wax puddles, your grandmother gives you a folded piece of cloth. Inside is a drawing crude, made with coal and chalk. A child walking between 2 markets. One bright. One dim. Each with stalls and banners, each with shadows shaped like hands. You look up at her. She doesn't smile. Your mother used to dream of them too, she says softly. But she forgot before she turned 9. You want to ask forgot one. But something in her own tells you not to ask questions you're not ready to carry. There's a Yoruba saying she once whispered to you, a child who returns his born feet first. Not always literally, but symbolically, as if their soul is trying to walk backward before it's even stood up. You remember the day you were old. You came out in silence, not crying, not screaming, just blinking at the midwife like someone who arrived late to a party that already attended. Your dreams begin to blur. Sometimes the market returns. Sometimes it's just pieces of ited rum echoing under your pillow, a coin appearing in your shoe, a scent on your bedsheet that vanishes before you can name it. One evening you find yourself humming again. This time, your little brother joins in, matching the melody instinctively, though you've never sung it aloud. You freeze. He doesn't. He just nods, as if to say, yes, I know this too. You watch him sleep that night, wondering if he dreams of yellow gates and baskets of feathers, or if he is one of the lucky ones who forgets. Your grandmother teaches you a new ritual, an old one, really. Write your forgotten wishes, she says, on leaves. Don't read them aloud. Burn them before sunrise. You ask what happens to the smoke. It finds the river Orishas, she says. They carry forgotten things back to where they came from. So you do it. You write 5 wishes. They're not elaborate. One is just a single word. Another, a feeling. You don't remember all of them when you wake. But the ashes on your windowsill smell faintly of salt and something floral like memory dressed as spring. In school, your class studies maps. Your teacher points at countries, oceans, rivers. You raise your hand. What about places that aren't on maps? She blinks. You mean places that no longer exist? No, you say. Places that exist, but only before you're reborn. She frowns. Like myths? You shrug. She moves on. But a boy across the room mouths a single word at you, yes. After class, you find a feather in your locker. White. Cold. Warm. No one claims it. You keep it in a small pouch sewn into your pillowcase. There's a belief in Yoruba cosmology that every soul, before birth, kneels before the divine market and chooses path, joys, sorrows, companions, and obstacles. You don't remember kneeling. But sometimes, when the wind shifts through the grass in a particular way, you feel as if something is bowing inside you. Not in submission. In recognition. You ask your grandmother if we choose everything before. Why do we cry when it happens? She looks at you for a long time. Because the body doesn't always remember what the soul agreed to. That night, you fall asleep with a soft tape behind your eyes, like a tear that forgot its reason for being. In your dream, you are walking through a corridor of hanging fabrics. Silks, burlapes, cottons all swaying with breath instead of breathe. At the end of the corridor is a man with a mask shaped like a spoon. He doesn't speak, but he holds out a bowl filled with river stones. You take one. It's heavier than you expect. Etched into its surface a spiral made of question marks. When you wake, your hand is curled as if gripping something. But it's empty. Still, the feeling remains. Like you've held a question long enough for it to become its own answer. You visit the river soon after. Not with anyone. Just you. You stand at the edge barefoot, the water licking at your toes, like a dog that's missed you. You whisper, I forgot something. The river makes no sound. But a leaf floats by, spinning slowly, as if nodding. Later, your grandmother finds a line of wet footprints from the door to your bed. She doesn't ask. She just places a dried orange peel beneath your mattress. To remind your dreams where the mouth is, she says. That night, you dream of oranges, but not eating them. Selling them. In the market. You're E10 now, and the market is beginning to look different. Less like memory. More like mirror. You wake one morning and whisper a name you don't recognize. But your chest takes when you say it. You write it down. Fold the paper. And hide it in a book you've never finished. Not out of fear, but because some names aren't for calling. They're for returning. You're 11 when the dreaming changes tempo. Not louder. Not stranger. Just steadier. As if the rhythm of some deeper self has started tapping on the inside of your bones, a knock you only hear in liminal moments between breaths, between thoughts, between footsteps on dew-wet ground. One evening, you follow your grandmother to the local shrine. It's not grand, just a small circular hut of earthen-woven palm, with charms hanging from the ceiling like dried whispers. A bowl of water sits in the center, ringed by stones and cowrie shells. "You'll pour libation tonight," she tells you. You blink. "I'm not old enough." "You're not young either," she says, not unkindly. You've walked longer paths than most know how to name. She shows you how to crush kola nut in your palm and hold it over the water. You do. Your fingers tremble just slightly. The nut crumbles. The dust scatters. What do I say? "Nothing," she replies. "But think of what your soul has forgotten." You close your eyes. You think of feathers on rivers and names you never said aloud. You think of laughter echoing between cloth stalls. Of a woman in blue who never turned her face toward you, but whose hands you still remember. The wind stirs the shells. One flips upside down. Your grandmother nods. "Something remembered you," she whispers. The old woman who tends the shrine gives you a small stone afterward. Smooth river Midas washed, cool as a forgotten thought. You slip it into your pocket. You never tell anyone about it. But for years, you carry it in every jacket you own, never switching it intentionally. It simply moves with you. At school, a new boy arrives. He stares at you too long, blinks too slowly. At recess, he says, you hum in your sleep. You pause. "How do you know?" "I used to hum that song too," he shrugs. "Used to?" "Before," he says. And walks off. You don't follow. You don't need to. That night, you wake with a word on your tongue, obin. A Yoruba word for woman, yes. But it feels like more. You murmur it aloud, and the air in your room bends around the syllables like a cloth drawn through water. In the weeks that follow, you begin to draw. Not with skill, but with certainty. Images you don't recognize, rivers and loops. Markets shaped like eyes, doorways made of shadow and thread. One image keeps recurring, a figure with no mouth, offering you a basket of flame-colored leaves. In one dream, you finally ask, "What are these?" The figure doesn't answer. But a voice behind you, one you never see, says things you never got to want. You wake crying. You don't know why. But your pillow smells like oranges and smoke. Your grandmother teaches you a simple charm. Take a thread of indigo, knot it 13 times, and tie it around your ankle before sleep. It anchors you, she says. Keeps you from slipping too far. Slipping where? Where you already were. So you do. The first night you wear it, your dreams are blank. But your body feels rested in a way you haven't known since you were a toddler, warm against the heartbeat of someone who promised not to let go. In Yoruba cosmology, they say that dreams are not merely visions, they are visitations. Places the soul revisits to renegotiate, to remember, to rest. Your mother catches you staring into nothing one day and says, "You always look like you're listening." I am. To what? The part of me that isn't here. She's quiet for a moment, then kisses the top of your head. I hope it's kind to you. One afternoon, you find an old book tucked behind jars in your grandmother's kitchen. It isn't labeled. Inside, pressed leaves, old receipts, and a drawing. Hey, child. standing at the gate of a market. One hand open, one hand closed. On the back, in faded ink she remembered too soon. You don't ask. But that night, you place your own drawing beside it. Yours shows a river running through a malmina-shaped cave, and birds made of stitched fabric flying into it. You add no words. Words feel too loud lately. The older you grow, the softer everything becomes. Not blurry. Just intentional. Like the way cloth falls when folded with care. You begin to see rituals everywhere, how your grandfather stirs tea always clockwise. How your little cousin presses coins into flower pots. How your aunt never wears red on Sundays. No one calls them rituals. But they are. Little ways the soul signals that it remembers the long before, the gentle elsewhere. You ask your grandmother, "Did I come back to fast?" She takes your hand, traces the lines in your palm. "No," she says. "You came back at the exact pace you needed. But you brought your luggage." You laughed and frowned. "Will I ever unpack it?" When you stop naming everything you carry. You don't understand. But you do. The next night, you dream of the market again. This time, it's closing. The stalls are covered, the lamps dimmed. A bell rings once, twice, thrice. Someone takes your hand. You look up. It's the woman in blue. You still can't see her face. But she presses something into your palm, a key made of coral and feather. You whisper, "What does this open?" Her answer is neither sound nor silence. Just a nod. A door appears behind you. You turn. When you wake, your hand is curled again. Empty. But your breath feels larger. As if you'd made room for something just by sleeping. That morning, you untie the indigo thread. Let it sit by the window. The wind moves it gently, like someone humming. By 12, you begin to forget your age. Not because of carelessness, but because time begins to feel like a strange costume, something itchy, until mine is fitting that people insist you with a school into family gatherings. You answer questions politely, but inside you are no longer counting years. You are counting folds in the sky, the length of shadows at dusk, how many footsteps it takes for the scent of roasted corn to reach the shrine. On the inside of your wrist, a pattern of 3 freckles forms a triangle. You never paid attention before. But one morning, while brushing your teeth, you pause mid-minus motion. The freckles seem darker. The triangle, tighter. You feel the sudden urge to circle them with your finger, clockwise. You don't know why. But something clicks in your chest when you do. That night, you have a dream where a woman places 3 stones in your hand and says, "Choose which one remembers you." You pick the smallest. It opens. Inside is a fragment of music. A tune you cannot sing, but know well enough to hum. You wake with your palm pressed over your heart. From then on, your dreams come quieter. Not fewer, just gentler. They arrive like notes slipped under the door. A lantern flickering just beyond your reach. They do not speak in voices anymore. They speak in smell, in texture, in colors you don't have words for. In Yoruba cosmology, the aura, your spiritual head, your soul's compass, is said to make a pact before entering this life. A plan. A rhythm. An offering. But sometimes, they say, the aura forgets. Or chooses to. Or chooses, in forgetting, to remember more deeply. You begin to wonder if that's what you area remembering happening backward. A child with an ori that took the scenic route. At your grandmother's urging, you begin to attend small rituals led by the old women of the village. They let you carry bowls, grind leaves, and pour water from calabashes as long as you don't speak unless spoken to. One ritual is for returning lost names. Each woman eyes a strip of cloth to a low-minus hanging branch on an elder tree. One cloth for each name forgotten in this lifetime. You die none. But you sit beneath the tree and watch them flutter. And something inside you flutters back. One day, during a lull in the heat, your grandmother tells you about the market before the birth. It's not a real market, she clarifies, but it smells like one. It has stalls on noise and things hanging from the ceiling you're not supposed to touch. But everything there is chosen your laughter, your fears, your beauty, your brokennesses. You walk through it like you're shopping for yourself. And then, she says, you forget. You pay with forgetting. You blink. Forget what? The market. The stall. The hand that helped you carry your joy. The one that whispered, you don't need to take so much pain this time. She smiles sadly. But sometimes, some of us, she taps your forehead, remember anyway. Later that night, you sit by the window and try to smell that market. You close your eyes. There it is: smoke, spice, citrus rind, cloth soaked in something sweet and old. You see colors strung like beads. And laughter, actual laughter, hung from strings like charms. One voice rises above the rest. It says your name. Not the one you were given, but the one you'll never speak aloud. You whisper it anyway. The trees outside sway. The shadows at the edges of your room pause, lean closer. You feel no fear, only context. The next day, a woman you've never met stops you on the street. You look like a boy I knew once, she says. He sold water in a Gordon always wore one sandal. You smile. Maybe that was me. She frowns. But he lived 100 years ago. You shrug. Maybe he remembers me. She nods, like that makes more sense. You begin to write again. Not words. Symbols. Strokes. Ink that dries too quickly. Your hands move faster than your thoughts, as if some other version of you is still fluent in a language you've long forgotten. You draw a market with no doors. You draw a birth with no mother. You draw yourself twice, once in color, once in ash. You tuck the pages into books between bed sheets, under flower pots. You don't need to show them. You only need to let them exist. That week, your dreams return with new weight. You stand in the market again. But this time, it is flooded with light. Each stall glows faintly. Each object sings. You walk slowly, as if floating. A cloth brushes your shoulder. A jar pulses in rhythm with your breath. You reach a booth filled with shoes. None of them fit. The vendor shrugs. Maybe you came too early. You say, maybe I came barefoot on purpose. He laughs. You wake laughing too. Your mother asks what the dream was. You say, I tried on someone else's fate, and it was too tight. She nods like she understands. Maybe she does. That afternoon, you find the triangle on your wrist is no longer 3 freckles, but 4. You do not panic. You simply whisper, welcome. The day the river speaks to you, you are not trying to listen. You are sitting beneath a tree, knees dusty, your hands wet from helping grandmother wash bitter leaf. The air is still except for the occasional sound of wings above and the small slap of cloth hitting stone. Nothing mystical. Nothing profound. And yet something shifts. At first, it's the way the river hushes. Not quiets exactly. Hushes. As if someone unseen has just put a finger to their lips and asked the breeze to behave. You glance up, expecting to see someone near the bank, maybe children skipping stones or a fisherman dragging in the morning's net. But no one is there. Still, you feel watched. Not in the uneasy way. More like regarded. Known. The water ripples once, even though no breeze stirs. And then, gently, you hear it. Not words. Not even voice. But knowing. It drifts into you the way mist enters a room. A slow presence. A soft suggestion. It says we remember you. You blink. For a moment you wonder if it's a memory something left behind by a story you've read or a tale your grandmother once told by lantern light. But no. The knowing remains. It expands. The Yoruba believe their rivers are alive not just with water, but with spirit. Oh, soon, the Orisha of fresh water, fertility, and the sweet pulse of love often dwells in the river's hush. She is not always seen. She does not need to be. But she is there watching, tending, reminding. The elders say she keeps jars. One for every soul. Not to collect their tears, but to hold the wishes they forget. You wonder how many jars might hold the whispered dreams you've released into pillows, or folded into poems, or buried in the garden behind your grandmother's home. What happens to a forgotten wish? Osun does not discard them. She keeps them, tends them, waters them in the spirit realm like tiny seeds. And sometimes when the soul returns through the veil, that wish is offered again polished, softened, ripened. You close your eyes beside the river and feel for those jars. You feel many. One is cracked. One is heavy. One glows faintly in your chest. You do not know their names, but you know their temperature. One is warm like your grandmother's palm. One is cold like the look in your father's eyes the night he didn't understand your silence. You ask inwardly if you can open one. The hush answers not yet. And you smile. Not from disappointment, but from recognition. In the distance, a kingfisher dives. The sound startles your breath, but not your bones. You are still connected. When you tell your grandmother that night what happened by the river, she stirs her pot slowly. The river is not a place, she says. It's a mood. You tilt your head. What kind of mood? She considers. The kind that makes forgotten wishes return as echoes. That night, your dreams are luminous. Not vivid. Just bright. You are standing on a bridge made of clay jars, each marked with tiny symbols drawn in gold, carved in charcoal, etched with salt. You walk carefully, balancing between them, barefoot and unafraid. Below, the river flows upward. Yes, upward. Lake memory returning home. You look down and see faces. Some yours. Some not. They are all singing the same note. You ain't coming. For the first time, your mother does not hush you at breakfast. She hums too. Later, as you fetch water, you pause at the bank. The hush returns. We still remember, it says. You reply, out loud, I'm starting to. A leaf floats downstream. Not from any tree nearby. It is shaped like a tongue. It is red at the tip. The Yoruba tell of wishes given to Sue. Of words offered before they are ripe. Osun, they say, is gentle but not careless. She keeps those too. Lets them stew a while. Turns them in her palm like stones waiting to become river glass. You wonder if you've wished something too soon. You wonder what shape it will take when it returns. And you begin to notice something else. People start asking you strange things. A neighbor you barely know says, "Do you still sell honey?" You say, "I never did." She tilts her head. "No, but you used to. A long time ago. In the brown market near the shrine." You shake your head. "I've never been to a market like that." She frowns. "Then you must have a twin." You almost say, "Maybe I do." But something deeper says maybe I was the twin. That evening, by the river again, you see a girl. She's wearing blue. She's not real, but she's real enough. She smiles and steps into the water. Doesn't sing. Doesn't speak. She holds out a jar. You take it. It's empty. But it hums with possibility. The moment breaks. You are alone again. But the jar remains in your dream. And somehow, in your heart. The next morning, the triangle of freckles on your wrist has darkened again. You had a small circle in ink, right in the center. You do not explain it to anyone. And for the first time in your life, you no longer feel the need to explain anything. By now, the freckles on your wrist have become more than freckles. They feel like constellations, markings left by something larger than you, perhaps by the market before your birth, or the quiet hands of a midwife who knew more than she said. You begin to trace them with your finger in the evenings, not out of curiosity, but out of conversation. As though they respond to your touch. As though they too remember. Your grandmother notices. She doesn't ask what you're doing. She only says some marks are not given. They are chosen. You nod. Not because you understand, but because you agree anyway. Later, when the sun folds behind the hills and the lanterns in the hallway blink to life, you find yourself sitting outside again by the altar where your family leaves offerings to the Orisha. A bowl of fruit. A small white stone. A carved spoon that belonged to a woman no one remembers by name, only by the way her soup could silence a room. Tonight, the candle flickers strangely. It leans left, then straightens again. You wait. There's a dream lingering just beneath your ribs. Not a dream from sleep, but a future one. A memory that hasn't happened yet. You breathe into it slowly. Then, you hear the whisper. She has returned. You look toward the garden gate, half minus, expecting a figure in blue, half minus lit by moonlight. But there's no one there. Still, the whisper doesn't lie. The girl from the river jar dreams has returned. Not outside you. Inside. She stirs in the space between your shoulder blades, in the place your back always aches when you're trying too hard to be what others expect. Tonight, you let her breathe. You recall something an old story once told you, how in Yoruba cosmology, when a soul is ready to return to the living world, they pass through the Ayala market. A market of destinies. A place where unborn souls kneel before shelves of fates and choose, sometimes recklessly, the path that will shape their life. Some pick quickly. Some bargain. Some weep. Some are tricked. But all must choose. You wonder what this version of you chose in that market. Was she the one who chose laughter as a shield? Did she pass over ease in favor of deep feeling? Did she perhaps point to a jar glowing softly in Osun's hand and say, "That one"? He'll take the one with the whisper in it. Because now, that whisper hums beneath your skin. And it's not a burden. It's a song. You rise slowly and walk into the kitchen. Your mother is shelling beans. She looks up, pauses, then blinks. "What's that on your wrist?" she asks. You glance down. The circle you drew last night with ink has faded, but in its place, a faint ring remains. Not reed. Not black. Just skin that remembers something your body did not. "I don't know," you say. "Maybe nothing." She shrugs. "It looks like something." You smile. Later, you write in your notebook, "The child I was remembers the jar I left behind." And suddenly, you recall a market not of stalls, but of thresholds. A place you visited once in a dream or between lives. It was dim and warm and smelled like ground cinnamon and salt. There were voices, but none directed at you. Only laughter, echoing from somewhere you couldn't reach. You walked between rows of balls, some filled with water, some with feathers. One held a single stone that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the end of the row, there was a mirror, but it didn't show your face. It showed 3 lives waiting. You weren't told what they were, but you felt them. One was loud. One was kind. One was not yet finished. You turned to leave, but something whispered, "Choose." And you touched the mirror. Not because you understood, but because you trusted the pull. Now, in the present, if this is the present, you feel that pull again. It tugs softly at your left ear, like your grandmother's fingers did when she caught you daydreaming. You listen. In the courtyard, the candle leans again. And this time, a breeze follows. Inside it, a scent you've never smelled before but instantly recognized. Something like wet earth and citrus peel. The scent of an orange once offered to the river. A wish sealed in ride. You close your eyes and see her. The girl in blue. She's kneeling in front of the market gate, holding the jar. She opens it. Out spills not light, not shadow, but sound. A child's laugh. Yours. From before. You remember it not with ears, but with breath. You were so happy back then. So full of curiosity, your hands barely able to hold all the questions. Where did the moon sleep when the sky was full? Why did shadows stretch longer before rain? How did time know when to bend? You reach for those questions now. They come to you like old friends. Not answers. Just company. You whisper one of them aloud. Your grandmother, outside now, hears on to answers without hesitation. Because the spirits love to be remembered. You smile. The jar within you hums again. It is not full. It is not empty. It is exactly what it was meant to be. You write again in your notebook. This time, without looking. I was always meant to return. The page curls slightly at the edge, kissed by the candle's warmth. And above you, somewhere in a sky too vast to name, something watches. Not a god. Not an ancestor. Not even a soon. Just possibility. And that, too, is sacred. The next morning arrives not with sunlight, but with sound, a soft clinking of spoons in a basin, the rhythmic sweep of a broom across cracked tile, the rooster that always forgets he already crowed. The house is waking, and with it, something inside you exhales. You stretch slowly, arms brushing the wall beside your bed. The dreams didn't fade completely this time. A small part of them lingers behind your eyes, like light filtered through a curtain. You know you were somewhere important. You know you touched something meant to be forgotten. There's a hum beneath your collarbone. The same feeling you had in the garden when the candle leaned for no wind. You dress quietly and slip out back to the family-ass washing stone. The water is cool, carrying the night's weight away from your fingers. You scoop a little and touch your wrists. The freckled constellation pulses briefly, then settles. Behind you, your mother hums. Just not humming a song you recognize, but you've heard it before long ago before this body. A lullaby sung by someone whose voice echoed between lives. You pause. Something in the way the notes fall reminds you of the Ayala market again, the one where souls select their fates. In Yoruba belief, Ayala is both potter and trickster. A celestial craftsman who molds the heads, or ori, that carry destiny. Some heads are strong, wise, steady. Others are flawed, cracked, easily deceived. And every soul must pick a head before descending into life. Some pick quickly. Some pick foolishly. And some pick the wrong one, then spend their entire lives trying to remember the choice. You remember the girl from your dreams, the one in blue, the one who hummed the name of the market under her breath like a secret. You realize something: she watched you in a past life. She was you in a forgotten moment. A flicker of possibility never lived, but still stored in the soul's pantry like an unsent letter. And she's still here. You turn toward the washing stone and begin humming the tune your mother sang. Slowly at first, then more confidently. The water changes. It doesn't shimmer. It listens. There's a tale they tell in certain Yoruba households of children born who speak immediately, not full sentences, just names. Names of places their parents have never visited. Names of rivers long dry. Names of gods that only appear in dreams. They're called Debi Aiku, born to die, born again. Souls that loop. Souls that hover. Souls that struggle to land fully in the body. Your grandmother once said your cousin was like that. He used to cry at the smell of yam porridge, not from hunger, but memory. They don't cry for milk, she had whispered. They cry for the taste of the river before they were born. You dip your fingers in the water again. That's what it feels like now. The river before birth. Still. Patient. But never forgetful. Inside your pocket, your fingers brush the dried petal you tucked there last week, a blossom you found near the temple gate. You thought it was just pretty. Now, it feels like it chose you. You place it on the washing stone. The breeze picks up. Not enough to chill. Just enough to notice. The petal lifts slightly, trembles, then rests again. You hear the softest murmur. Not voice. Not wind. A reminder that your soul has lived many places, and one of them is still waiting for you. In the early afternoon, you sit with your grandfather. He watches the clouds and stirs his tea without sipping it. Grandpa, you say, do you believe in children who remember before they're born? He doesn't look at you. He only smiles. Of course, he says. Some of them are sitting right in front of me. You laugh, but you feel it in your stomach. It's not a joke. He continues, still stirring the untouched tea. They're the ones who walked it carefully at first. The ones who look at trees like they're trying to recognize someone. The ones who say, I miss you too, places they've never been. You blink slowly. That sounds like you. He looks at you now. The soul doesn't forget, he says. It just waits for the body to catch up. Later, you take a walk down to the edge of the market, not the spirit market from the dreams, but the real one. The one with traders and smells and shouting and soft greetings. And yet, the stalls feel familiar in a strange way. One sells carved spoons. Another sells indigo minus dyed cloth that reminds you of the girl in blue. There's a vendor with a basket of glass beads. Each bead has a crack inside it, like it's swallowed a piece of lightning. The vendor smiles at you. No one buys these, she says. They're not for wearing. They're for remembering. You ask what they remember. She shrugs. That depends on who holds them. You pick one up. It's cool. Heavy for its size. And the moment you close your fingers around it, the hum returns. That soft, deep pulse beneath your ribs. Not a warning. A welcome. You don't say anything. You just nod. And the vendor, as if satisfied, wraps the bead in cloth and places it in your hand. No charge, she says. You already paid before you were born. You walk home with the bead in your pocket. You don't tell anyone. But that night, you sleep without dreams. Not because the soul is quiet, but because it is full. Full of old markets. Full of raver minus songs. Full of laughter from lies not yet lit. And above your bed, the candle flame bends just slightly toward your wrist. Toward the constellation. Toward the place where memory waits. The next morning is silver. Not rainy. Not cloudy, just a soft metallic glow that blankets everything in a kind of quiet reverence. You wake slowly, your breath sissening with the hush outside your window. The bead from the market rests in your palm, though you could swear you left it on the table. You smile, not in surprise, but in agreement. Sometimes memory moves faster than logic. The morning moves like honey. The sky doesn't hurry. The trees don't fidget. Even the birds take their time between chirps. At breakfast, your mother offers you OGI with honey, a comfort food from her own childhood. You thank her. She smiles, distracted, and abstinently hums the same melody she sang the day before. You recognize it now not as a lullaby but as a call. A call to the market before life. The market where wishes stretch into threatened old death's rest folded in silk pouches. In Yoruba cosmology, it's said that every soul chooses their destiny before birth. This choice is made in or on the spirit realm, often before the feet touch soil. You pick a path, a rhythm, an ache you're willing to carry. But what they don't always say out loud is some souls forget to bargain well. Those are the ones born with fragile shoulders and loud dreams. They're the ones who speak of rivers they've never seen, or weep when the wind smells like roasted maize. They are not broken. Just a little too intact, still tethered to where they came from. You take the bead out from your pocket and hold it up to the light. It catches the silver morning, throws it back with a wink. You wonder if it remembers the market. The real one, or the other one. Or both. Outside, you pass by an elder who sits by the same tree every morning, counting rosary seeds into a small clay bowl. She doesn't look at you, but as you pass, she whispers, "A child who remembers the market forgets how to lie." You pause. She continues counting. You want to ask what she means, but the beat grows warm in your head. You keep walking. There's a temple on the far edge of town, low stone walls, weathered by breath and time. It's not busy this morning. Only a single monk sweeping sand in slow, spiraled patterns. You sit nearby, watching the arcs grow wider, then collapse into themselves. It reminds you of the girl in the blue robe from your dreams, the way she circled the clay pots, fingers trailing, never touching. Perhaps she was sweeping fate into shape. Or maybe just stalling. The monk looks up and smiles. He doesn't ask why you're here. You reach into your pocket and place the bead on the stone beside you. He nods, as if to say, "Ah, you brought it back." You don't remember taking it from here. But the echo in your bones says yes. You've done this before. He gestures to a shrine near the back of the temple, modest in design, but heavy with presence. You walk toward it. On the altar are 3 objects. A carved comb missing the teeth, a feather stained with ochre, and a folded strip of blue cloth. You inhale sharply. The cloth matches the robe from your dream. You reach out to touch it. But just before your fingers graze the fabric, the wind picks up. Only inside the shrine. A rush of air circles the room. Dust swirls into a small spiral. The feather rises ever so slightly, then rests again. You lower your hand. The monk places the bead on the cloth. "There," he says. It recognizes you now. You don't need to ask what he means. The cloth is not just cloth. The comb is not just comb. The bead is not just bead. Together, they are a story. One that has finished being told. Back home, your grandfather is carving something. His knife moves with the rhythm of someone who's done this thousands of times. You sit beside him, wordless. He hands you a sliver of wood. "Feel it," he says, "before you shape it." You do. And what you feel isn't just texture or grain. You feel the weight of a choice you made long ago. A path selected. A laughter traded for silence. A market walked in bare feet. The soul doesn't forget. Only the mouth does. You carve. Not skillfully, but with memory. And the shape that emerges is strange somewhere between a crescent and a cup. A vessel for holding things you cannot name. He nods, satisfied. That's the kind of bowl they use for forgetting, he says. But also for listening. A bead sits beside it on the table. The sun shifts overhead, sliding gold between tree branches. A bird lands near the window and taps once against the pane. Not as an omen, as a punctuation mark. That night, you light a candle in your room. No incense. No chanting. Just the flicker of flame and the soft pulse in your wrist, where the Fergal constellation lies. You remember something. There was once a child who said she saw a spirit sitting in her mother's shadow, weaving dreams like cloth. She said the spirit gave her a basket of names and asked her to choose one to carry into life. She chose the one that made her cry. And when her mother asked why, she said, "Because I want to remember." Some names are chosen for forgetting. Some names are chosen for remembering. And some names are never spoken at all. Only felt like a hum beneath skin. You whisper your name, not the one you were outside, but the one that the bead knows. The room answers with stillness. And that is enough. The next day, everything feels slightly out of focus, like you're walking through the outline of the world instead of the world itself. You move slowly, as if your body knows it's not just walking through space, but time, and also something older than both. You decide to visit the riverbank. Not for any reason you can name, but because something in your chest tilts when you think of the water. It's as if a small stone has rolled slightly in your ribcage, revealing a name you forgot to write down. The path to the river is half-minus covered in moss. The air tastes like metal and citrus, like memory in the middle of a yawn. When you arrive, the river is neither high nor low, it simply is. A gentle, persistent presence, like someone telling you a story with no words. You sit on a boulder near the water and close your eyes. In Yoruba belief, rivers are not just water, they're entities. Spirits. Orishas. Messengers who never stop moving. Osun is one of the most revered guardian of fertility, diviner of sweetness, keeper of deep, intuitive wisdom. It is said that when Osun smiles, honey appears. And when she weeps, whole forests remember how to bloom again. You whisper her name not loudly, but gently, like a thank you. And then you open your eyes. A fish jumps. Not far. Just enough to mark the moment. You reach into your pocket and pull out the bead again. You're not sure how it got there this time, because you swore you left it on the altar, curled against the blue cloth like a punctuation mark on the end of a forgotten chant. But here it is. So you cup your hands and let the water run over it. For a breathless second, the bead floats, then sinks. And the moment it vanishes beneath the surface, something lifts from your chest. Not like a burden, more like a thread uncoiling. You look up. A woman is standing at the edge of the river. Dressed in pale yellow, head wrap tilted like a question. She does not speak. She only nods at you once and steps into the water. But her feet do not sink. She walks across the surface, slow and calm, until she disappears behind the bend. You don't chase her. You understand. There are stories you don't follow. Only remember. You walk back through the woods. The leaves brush your shoulders like old friends. Somewhere, a child laughs sharp and sudden, like a bell dropped down a well. You pause. No one is there. But you still smile. That night, as you lie in bed, your fingers drift to the hollow behind your ear, where the bead used to rest when you dreamed as a child. You never understood why you touched that spot before sleep. But now you know. That's where the market left you. That's where the spirit merchants kissed you goodbye. In Yoruba cosmology, some children are born with clear memories of their past lives. They speak of spirit markets and contracts written in winged. Elders call them abiku or emir souls that choose to come and go, hover between, revisit the market before fully arriving. They are not cursed, not blessed, just different. They carry the fragrance of elsewhere. You think again of the woman in yellow, of the river that accepted your bead, of the way the bead returned, each time, just when you needed to remember. Maybe it was never a bead at all. Maybe it was a knot of memory, cruel and glowing. Maybe the bead was your name. The one no one else knows. The one that sighs when you forget, but never leaves. You light a candle. Again, no incense. No chance. Just flame. And a whisper. This time, you say thank you. You say sorry. You say nothing at all. You hold the silence, and the silence holds you back. You dream again, but this time, you are not a child. You are the woman in yellow stepping into the river with no fear of sinking. You are the monk sweeping spirals that vanish in wind. You are the bead, passed from hand to hand, never owned, never lost. You are the lullaby whispered across room walls before the first breath. You are the laugh that echoes before the story is told. And in the middle of that dream, a question floats to the surface. If the soul forgets on purpose, who teaches it how to remember? You don't answer. You don't have to. You only sit at the riverbank. And this time, when the fish jumps, you smile. Not because it's magical, but because it's ordinary. And that's the real miracle. Morning again, but this one feels different. The light comes in not like a flood, but like an invitation, soft, diffused, a veil parting rather than a window thrown open. You move slowly through the room, every motion echoing with some deeper rhythm, like the beat of a drum you can't hear but still follow. There's no urgency today. No task to complete. Only a quiet stirring that pulls you towards something unscheduled. You step outside and find yourself walking not on a path, not toward any destination, but with a sense that something in the air has remembered you. There's a little stone shrine not far from the town's edge. You've passed it before, but never stopped. Today you do. It's covered in offerings, tiny items that seem insignificant until you look closely. A child's marble. A feather tied with red thread. A folded note pressed between stones. A BDS, like yours, but dulled with time, the color almost worn away. You kneel. These are not prayers left here. They are reminders. Each object a sentence someone forgot to speak out loud. Each an apology, a wish, a pause in a longer story. In Yoruba practice, it's common to leave tokens not just for the orishas, but for the unseen travelers. Spirits in transition. Children who chose to return. Ancestors who slip in and out of dreams. It's not about summoning them. It's about acknowledging the space they take up even when unseen. You place your hand on the stone. It's warm from the sun, but something in its core feels older, like the breath of a grandmother who's been watching from beyond. Your fingers brush one of the marbles. For a moment, you see a child crouched beside the shrine, whispering her an aim into the dirt. She's not playing. She's remembering. You stand again, not because the moment ends, but because it settles into you. And you walk back into the village. People pass. You nod. Some nod back. Some look past you as though you were a breeze. But one woman pauses. A stranger, maybe. Or someone from long ago. She smiles with her eyes first. You've been to the river, she says. You nod. And that's it. She walks on. But her words linger like smoke caught in sunlight. That evening, you find a folded piece of cloth at the foot of your bed. You don't know who left it. But it's soft. Faded blue. The kind of cloth used in baby slings or spirit pouches. Inside, a single dried leaf, curled and silvered at the edges. You hold it. And the scent that rises is not floral, not herbal, but something in between. Like lullabies sung in kitchens, or the warmth of a shoulder that held you while you cried and didn't ask why. You place the pouch under your pillow. In your dream, there is a market again. But this time, it's closed. The stalls are shuttered. The bells are silent. The path is swept clean. And in the center, a child sits on a low bench waiting. She looks up as you approach. Her face is familiar. Not from this life. Maybe not from any. She holds a cup in both hands. Not to drink. Just to warm her palms. You sit beside her. The silence between you is not empty. It's full of all the things you never got to say in lives you no longer remember. And still, it's enough. Finally, she speaks. I chose you, she says, because you would wait. You ask what for. She shrugs. That's the part I forgot. You both laugh quietly. You wake slowly, fingers still curled around the edge of the cloth under your pillow. The house is quiet. The sky is still blue minus black. The birds haven't begun yet. You feel full not of noise, not of knowing, but of a kind of general readiness. Like a basket woven to carry only the lightest things. You think again of the bead, of the shrine, of the market, and of the way the child waited without worry, as if waiting was part of the remembering. There's a saying, whispered in some Yoruba houses, when a baby stares too long at a shadow or laughs at nothing at all. She's talking to the ones who haven't forgotten her yet. And maybe you are too. Maybe all this time, someone on the other side has been humming your name, waiting for you to pause long enough to listen. You breathe in. The cloth under your pillow crinkles. The market is quiet now. But the child is still there. And you know you'll meet her again. Not to ask anything. Just to sip. To share the silence. To hold a cup between your palms. And to wait together for the thing you've both already begun to remember. Morning returns with a hush rather than a song. You don't wake startled. You rise as if lifted gently from water fluid, slow, the edges of sleep still clinging like mist around your shoulders. Outside, the trees sway in rhythm with a wind that remembers the names of things before they had names. You step out barefoot, the soil cool beneath your feet, and feel the strange but welcome sensation of being recognized by the day. Today, the village smells like yam broth and fresh rain. People move around you with the calm precision of those who trust the earth to spin without their intervention. Somewhere, a child cries not with panic, but insistence, the way young souls announce their return to the living world. You pause by the communal well. Its water is dark, still perfectly reflecting the sky above. You lean in, not to see yourself, but to watch how the reflection moves when you whisper. In many Yoruba villages, wells are more than water sources. They are considered passage points. Beneath the stone lip lies not just depth, but memory. It's said that wishes dropped and then don't vanish. They rise slowly, eventually, in the laughter of a grandchild or the shape of a bird's wing. A place where the living confess softly to those who still listen from somewhere else. You find a pebble, small and smooth. You hold it in your hand, breathe across it, and think not of anything urgent, just the moment you forgot to savor when it happened. A breeze through kitchen windows. The exact sound of a loved one's footsteps. Ale, half you didn't know would be the last. And you drop the stone. It doesn't splash. It disappears with a quiet certainty. The kind of vanishing that feels like a promise, not a loss. Later, you return to your doorway, where a clay dish has been placed. Inside pieces of kola nut, tiny pepper seeds, and a strip of white cloth. A blessing. A quiet gesture. No. Just knowing. Someone remembered you. Or maybe thanked you. Or maybe knew the path you walked. In Yoruba tradition, offerings like this are left not to bribe the spirits, but to greet them. To say, I see your footsteps. I honor your crossing. You'll keep the fire lit just in case you wander close again. You sit by the door and eat slowly. Not the offering, but a bowl of warm millet, a touch of honey, and something green and bitter. The kind of meal that speaks more to the soul than the stomach. And you think again of the child in the dream. Of the market. Of the bench. There's an old folk tale told only during the Harmattan season. About a child born remembering too much. She would walk through the village pointing out things no one else saw: old debts, old joys, secrets woven into roof beams. People feared her at first. But one day, she pointed to an old widow's hut and said, "The pot still sings even when it's empty." That's all. But afterward, people brought the widow soup, firewood, laughter. Not because the girl told them to, but because some truths are too simple for disbelief. Eventually, the girl forgot. Or maybe pretended to. She played with other children. Forgot the songs. Grew up. But every Harmattan, people still light a lamp near her old home. Just in case some other child walks by and remembers something too early. You sit with that thought a while longer. And then you hear it a slow, syncopated tapping. Not frantic. Not random. Rhythmic. You follow the sound through the back gardens, past drying gourds and hanging herbs. There, behind a house you've never noticed, sits an old woman tapping a calabash drum. She nods as you approach. No surprise. No invitation. Just recognition. Use it. She continues playing. Eventually, she speaks not as greeting, but continuation. They always come back after the dreams, she says. Some walk in circles. Some try to draw maps. But the ones who just sit there are the ones who remember best. You ask what the rhythm is for. For the river, she says. It doesn't need the beat. But we do. So we don't forget how to cross. She taps again. Slower now. The sound settles into you. And she begins to hum a tune so old it doesn't bother with melody. It's more shape than song. Something between breath and memory. You hum too, not because you know the tune, but because your bones do. For a moment, you both exist between now and not minus yet. Between waking and return. And then it passes. She stops playing. Go home, she says gently. The soul gets thirsty if you linger too long. You nod. She smiles. As you stand, she hands you a sliver of gourd shell. On it, a single painted symbol. You don't know what it means, but your fingers close around it with instinct. And when you place it in your pocket, the drumbeat lingers in your chest like a slow, steady yes. That night, before you sleep, you press your palm to the gourd again. And for a brief moment, you're back at the market. But not as a visitor. This time, you're sweeping the stones, folding the cloth, placing a bead in a child's open hand. And the child smiles, not because she knows you, but because she doesn't need to. Because somewhere between the leaving and the returning, the soul remembers its own name. And that, soft as it is, will be enough. The days begin to fold gently over each other, like sheets warmed in the sun. No fanfare, no marked change, just the slow shifting of breath into rhythm. You walk the village paths, not with urgency, but with a quiet awareness as though each step is a continuation of a question the earth once asked and never needed answered. People greet you as if they've always known you. Perhaps they have. Or perhaps they just recognize something in your eyes, the slow steadiness of someone who has sat beside a dream and didn't flinch when it opened its mouth to speak. The gourd shard remains in your pocket. It hums softly now and then, not audibly, but in memory. You find yourself reaching for it in moments of pause. Not for magic. Just grounding. You hear stories now. They seem to find you like moths find lamps. There's a tale whispered by weavers as they knock raffia into mats, about a child born in the middle of the dry season who refused to speak until someone brought her a basket from the spirit market. No one knew what a spirit market was, so they guessed. One elder wove a basket from cassava peel and palm leaves. Another lined it with feathers taken from a bird who died during song. The child touched it, looked around, and finally said one word again, then never spoke again. Some said she was a spirit who missed her chance to return fully. Others said she was waiting for the next soul to bring her back with better hands. You wonder how many children you've met who were just waiting for the right basket. The marketplace, in Yoruba thought, is never just commerce. It's a mirror of the other world, a rehearsal for reincarnation. Souls don't always choose their parents, they choose their market. The place of transaction, of choosing which joy to carry and which sorrow to leave wrapped in banana leaf beneath a clay table. You walk past the actual market square today. It's empty, save for a woman laying out dyed cloth to dry. The cloth flutters in indigo waves, shaped by the same wind that once whispered your name to a tree before you were born. You pause, just briefly, and you remember something. The child from your dream, the one with the calabash and the pebble and the smile, older than, and she had stood exactly where you are now. And she had said, I came back for the scent of fried plantain and the way light looks through torn umbrellas. You remember her again, not as other, but as echo, as possibility, as maybe a version of yourself that steps slightly sideways through time. The wind picks up. You walk on. Back at the house, a visitor waits. A man in his 70s, tall, with a cloth tied around his waist and a walking stick carved in the shape of a tortoise. He doesn't ask your name. He sits and nods at you the way old trees nod at passing clouds, recognizing, not grasping. He asks a simple question, did the river call you? You say yes. He smiles as though that's the only answer that's ever mattered. Then he begins to speak, not loudly, not directly, like someone mending a net and talking to the thread instead of the listener. There are children born with river marks, he says. 3 dark lines at the base of the spine, a soft hum behind their ear when it rains. These ones remembered it clearly. You ask what they remember. He shrugs. Where they came from. Who they were. The sound of their name when it was first shaped by wind. Sometimes, even the stall they used to sit at in the market before they chose to be small again. He taps his walking stick twice against the earth. Most forget by the time they walk. Some forget even faster at birth when they touch the wrong water. You ask what the right water is. He looks toward the east. The kind that flows both ways, he says. The kind that listens. He stands. Slowly. Bones creaking like old doors opening for the 100th time. And then, before leaving, he presses something into your hand, a small gourd stopper, etched with the symbol of a spiraling fish. It's not for keeping things in, he says. It's for letting things out, slowly. You nod. And he vanishes into the path between the baobab trees. That night, under a sky full of listening stars, you boil water and steep leaves not for tea, but to scent the house. Use it near the bowl and let the steam rise across your face like old blessings. You dream again. But this time, you are not the child. You are the star. The fabric. The quiet humming at the edge of the market. You are the memory the child chooses to carry into her next life, not a regret, but a warmth that reminds her you've been here before. You are welcome again. In the morning, you place a stopper beside your bed. And for the first time, it feels like nothing is missing. Only waiting. You wake with the quiet of rivers inside you. No rushing, no flood, just the soft, meandering trickle of something ancient returning to where it began. Light presses through the rafters like fingers through woven cloth. You stretch, not from stiffness, but from the slow delight of being housed inside yourself again. Outside, the village is already stirring. A broom swishes near the compound gate. A gourd ladle leans gently against a water pot. Someone singing a lullaby meant for neither baby nor sleep, just memory. A lullaby to remind the air what it once held. You dress without hurrying. Every motion feels like a small ritual, the folding of cloth, the splash of water on your face, the binding of hair. You catch a reflection in a basin and think, yes, that's the face of someone who has walked through forgotten markets and returned without needing to buy anything. Today is not marked by ceremony. And yet, everything feels ceremonial. You step out barefoot. The earth feels like a welcome. Today, the herbalist calls for you again, not with voice, but with smoke. Thin spirals rise from his hut like questions forming themselves in the air. You follow. Inside, HES preparing a blend not for healing, not for sleep, not even for remembering. For offering, he says, gently pouring dried leaves into a small gourd bowl. You raise an eyebrow. To whom? You ask. He tilts his head. To whoever is watching. He hands you the bowl and leads you to the riverbank. The same river. Still slow, still wide. But this time, you notice something new, footprints bare and overlapping at the edge of the water, like dozens of souls paused here recently. Perhaps to listen. Perhaps to leave something behind. You kneel and offer the bowl, placing it on the water's edge. It doesn't float. It doesn't sink. It just rests. Balance between wait and surrender. Beside you, the herbalist whispers, there's an old belief. He says that when a soul completes one cycle and chooses not to return, the river Orishas store their final wish. He nods toward the center of the water. They say those wishes become fish. You smile gently. And, for just a moment, a silver flash glimmers beneath the surface. He doesn't ask what you wished. You don't ask what he has seen. Instead, you both sit. And the breeze picks up. The reeds nearby lean inward as though curious. And slowly, the story begins to form not in your mouth, but in your bones. It hums beneath your ribs. It curls around your fingers. It waits patiently at the base of your spine, knowing it has all the time it needs. Because that's the thing about stories carried between lives. They never rest. They wait for silence. And your silence now is full of threads. You recall the little girl again, not in detail, but in rhythm. The way she hummed to herself before sleep. The way her fingers curled when reaching for yam. The way she blinked once, slow and deliberate, at the elder who asked if she believed in past lives. I remember markets, she said, but not the money part. And you understood her then. Because that's the truth of so many returning souls. They don't remember transactions. They remember sensations. Heat rising from clay rooftops. The sound of coins dropped accidentally into the wrong basket. The scent of smoked fish next to crushed hibiscus. The kindness of a stranger who said nothing, but placed a hand on your shoulder just long enough to say, "I see you." As the sun arcs higher in the sky, you rise. The herbalist hands you a piece of cloth. You unfold it. Inside, a single seed. This, he says, is your beginning. Again. You close your fingers around it. And suddenly, you know exactly where to plant it. Not in earth. Not in water. But in story. You return to your compound. You sit near the threshold. And you speak slowly, not to be heard, but to remember the shape of your own voice. You say, "I was a child once. I walked through the spirit market with bare feet and questions. I bartered nothing, but I left something behind. And in this life, I've come back to find it." A breeze stirs the grasses. A dog barks in the distance. A chicken clucks and hops onto a ledge. And somewhere inside you, the market opens again. Stalls filled with quiet merchants. The air smells of fermented stories. And a little girl walks through, basket in hand, looking for the one thing no one sells. A name soft enough to carry between lives. You smile. Because you know. She will find it. And maybe, this time, it will be yours. You've walked many lifetimes tonight. Some more familiar. Some will return when you're least expecting, a scent in a corridor, a face in a passing train, the echo of a lullaby humming through a market you haven't visited since before you were born. You've sat beside rivers that forget and remember in equal measure. You've offered empty bowls that filled themselves with meaning. You've spoken with herbalists who know more than books, who measure time not by hours, but by how long it takes a soul to loosen. And you've followed a child, one brave enough to remember not the grand stories, but the quiet details, the curve of a melon in the sun, the whisper of cloth brushing against ancestral stone, the sound of your own spirit asking gently, "Did I really come back?" Now, as your breath softens and your thoughts slow to the pace of clouds drifting across memory, let this feeling remain not sharp or heavy, just present, like the cool of a river at dawn. You don't need to name what you felt. You don't need to hold on to it. Let it settle like dust over old market stalls. Let it rest like a forgotten wish returned to the care of gentle gods. The world will still be waiting tomorrow. But tonight, you are already home. So, sleep softly, traveler of veiled paths. The river orations keep your dreams safe. The market of spirits is closed for now. And your name, whispered once more into the dusk, knows where to find you. Good night. Sweet dreams.